welcome to Miss Cindy's Kitchen. I'm going to show you a new recipe, and it is from the official Disney Parks cookbook, and it is Walt's chili and beans. And this is a recipe that they serve at the Carnation Cafe on Main Street, USA. So I don't know if they have it at both, I think it's just Disneyland. It may have it on the Florida parks also, but we're going to make chili.
So we're going to make Walt's chili.
I'm going to make Walt's chili. And it calls for 3/4 of a pound of stew meat. So the stew meat was like $10 a pound. And I found this on markdown, some flat iron steak. That's 0.8 pounds that I'm going to cut into cubes and use in the first part of the recipe for the stew meat.
Why is it called flat iron?
I don't know. I think it's just the name of the cut.
I mean, yeah.
So, what I'm going to do...
Hair?
Yeah. Is take this piece of steak. It's almost frozen, so it'll be easier to cut. Meat is easier to cut when it's almost frozen because it's less squishy. So you might want to come around this way.
I'm going to come around over here, yeah.
Okay, because I got to figure out where I'm standing here. So, stew meat is generally 1-inch cubes, and it's about 1 inch in thickness. So I'm just going to cut it like this. See, a nice... You could even do this kind of meat for shish kebabs. So basically, when you have a recipe and it asks for like stew meat, you can substitute based on availability or economy, because not everybody can fork out $10 for a small pack of meat.
No kidding.
So this was $6, and it's pretty much some nice lean beef.
It looks
and
really
it's got some marbling, which will make for, when you have marbling, it makes for flavor and tenderness. So this is how we're going to cut up the meat.
You said it's easier to cut when it's a little frozen?
Mm-hmm. Make that a little smaller.
Yeah, I was really surprised when we went to get the stew meat, and it was like $8 a pound, and it was going to cost almost $10. And I'm like, for stew meat? Let's try something else. And with you and your bargain hunting, you were able to find this.
Yeah.
And do you put any seasoning on this, or just the way that it's just like that?
You just sear it in the skillet. I mean, in the pan. So, there we have 3/4 of a pound of stew meat for the recipe. And that was only like $6 compared to like $10 for buying something else.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to look for bargains at the store. Use the recipe as a guide for what you're looking for. If stew meat's too expensive, look for another type of beef that may fit the bill. So, and then this recipe calls for 4 tablespoons of olive oil divided. And divided means you're using it in 2 parts of a recipe. We're going to use 2 ounces to brown the stew meat. And then in another part of the recipe, we're going to do another 2 ounces to brown or to saute the bell peppers and onion. And then this is the bell pepper. These are absolutely ginormous.
Where did we get those?
We got them from the food pantry.
Oh, jeez.
Because like a lot of people nowadays, it's harder to make ends meet, and we get some groceries from the food bank, and this is a beautiful bell pepper.
Oh my gosh.
It calls for 1 medium bell pepper diced. However, this being a jumbo, I'll likely just use half. So let me go ahead and light the skillet. I'm in the pot here. It says to cook in a Dutch oven, and a Dutch oven is just another word for stock pot. We're going to heat up the oil. That's about half of it.
Wow, you did that almost perfect. Pouring that in there. I would have been like...
Yeah. I'm going to stir it around. I'm going to let it sit for, it says to sit for 5 minutes before adding the meat. So what we can do in that time frame is start cutting up our veg. So I'm going to use a different knife for the veg compared to the meat. And let me also wash my hands because handled raw meat. And that flat iron steak was super easy to cut.
So I guess what you're saying is there's always a way to get around or substitute when you're looking for something.
Yeah. And I'm going to use this tool to brown the meat. I used it to stir something earlier. Alright. So, I'll let that heat up. Then, I'm going to rinse off this bell pepper. I had washed them earlier, but I'm going to rinse it off again. Alright. Now, the easiest way to deal with a bell pepper, I find, is to cut it in half. Go around the perimeter of the bell pepper. And then, kind of just loosen the core. It's easier with a smaller knife, but this is what's in my hand at the moment. So, a nice bell pepper. And if you're the gardening type, you could plant this and grow your own. So, peel off the little membranes in here that hold the seeds in. Alright. Now I can smell that the oil is hot enough now. So let's go ahead and add the meat. And it's going to sizzle and pop, so nobody jump.
Listen to that sizzle.
Yeah. Turn that down to see it. That's going to cook for about 10 minutes, so let me get the vegetables ready. So, I'm going to use the larger of the two halves, so I'll use that. And then, I find to dice a pepper, it's best to start with slices.
So you slice it and then you
Chop it.
chop it. Perfect.
Alright, like that. Goodness.
Oh, look at that. That's crazy. Now, I gotta ask, how do you keep from crying from an onion?
Well, if you're wearing glasses, that often works as a shield from the fumes. But the other thing I have heard is if you take a wet paper towel and place it next to your chopping board, that draws the fumes toward the towel rather than your eyes.
Wow, look at that. It's coming along really well.
Yeah. Alright, I'm going to chop the onion.
And you cut it in half and then you just...
Cut it in half again. I've been cutting onion like this since I was in middle school, so one of my friends showed me how to chop onion like this, and it works.
Does the trick.
Does the trick. So there's our onion and bell pepper for that step. And then one of the other ingredients we're going to put in the chili, as well as later on the chili as a garnish, is plum tomatoes. And plum tomatoes and Roma tomatoes, they're pretty much referred to, it's kind of like scallions and green onions.
Okay.
Different verbiage, same item. So I'm going to wash these and cut these also, because they're going to go in a little bit in the chili. So this has got to cook for about 10 minutes while it gets brown. And then why don't you hand me a cereal bowl so I can put the tomatoes in a cereal bowl so I can keep them separated.
Sure.
Gotta keep them separated.
Look at Miss Cindy knowing her 90s music.
Alright. Because this calls for canned tomatoes as well as fresh tomatoes. And whenever you cut tomatoes, if you have any resistance, it's time to sharpen your knife. Because you don't want to mash your tomatoes while you're cooking them. You want to cut them nicely. So keeping your cutlery sharp is good. I usually sharpen these before I do any food prep. But I just sharpened them a couple days ago, so figure they'd still be sharp.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like you cut them in half and then you cut them in half again, and then...
Well, basically, I'll show you on this one, where I'm cutting them in 4 slices lengthwise, and then into a dice.
Okay.
So, that is, say I cut the top off, stand it on its head in half, and then cut those halves in half. Like that.
Oh!
So see, there's 4 pieces of the tomato. Then I'm going to cut these. You can even cut them in 4 slices this way, but this is good enough. It's going in chili. It's going to be blending in anyway. Oh, I think I'm going to stop and sharpen the knife because, good heavens, it's getting hard to cut. So I'm going to clean the blade off real quick. This is a knife sharpener I've had forever. You just drag it towards you 7 times and it helps the blade line up again. It's got 2 ceramic crossbars in there that help realign the blade. And that's what sharpens a knife, is realigning the edges. So now the difference between the previous cut, see?
Oh, wow.
There's no resistance. It just cuts nicely, nice and clean. So you don't end up squashing your tomatoes while you're trying to cut them.
So it's okay to stop and sharpen the knife if you need to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Alright, so there's the tomato. Alright, let's stir up the meat. Tyler smelled food, so he came up to see what we were making.
Well, that's usually how kids are. They smell food and they come running. Oh, I wonder what Mom's making for dinner.
Yeah. Alright, and while the meat continues to cook, I will read through the recipe and we will do our best to post a picture of the recipe on the description of the video so that way you all can look at it and write it down. Either that or we'll get a picture to insert and you can just pause at that picture of the recipe to write everything down. So, for the chili ingredients, you need 1/4 cup of olive oil, 3/4 pound beef stew meat, 1 small onion diced, 1 medium green bell pepper diced, 4 cloves garlic minced, 1 pound ground beef, 1 tablespoon ground cumin, 1.5 tablespoons chili powder, 1 tablespoon onion powder, 3/4 teaspoon cayenne pepper, 3 tablespoons tomato paste, 2 plum tomatoes diced, which is what we just cut up, and 28 ounces of canned tomatoes. And I have two 14.5-ounce cans. That's subbing in for the 28 ouncer. And 2 tablespoons of beef base, which is this powdered bouillon. This stuff is a gem to have in your kitchen to add a lot of flavor to all kinds of soups and recipes. And then 1.5 cups of water and 1 14.5-ounce can of pinto beans, rinsed and drained, and coarse salt to taste. So that's the ingredients. And the step we're in now is step 1, where we're browning the stew meat. So now the stew meat's about done. We're going to take it out and move on to step 2, which is adding the remaining 2 tablespoons of oil to the pan. Heat it for 3 minutes over medium heat. And at that point, we add in the onions, green pepper, and saute them. Then add the garlic and saute until it's soft and fragrant. So let me go ahead and take the meat out, and then we'll move on to the next step of the recipe. I'll put it on the plate. I have to hide that plate from the dog. So, let me get a spoon to pull out the meat. That's been about 10 minutes. And see how it looks? It's kind of braised and browned a bit. This is a recipe you can make on a weekend where you can set it to simmer and then go do something else. So let me scoop out the meat. That smells so good.
Mm-hmm.
If only we had smell-o-vision. Which is kind of like what Disney does. They have little atomizers that pump out scent onto Main Street to make you hungry for whatever they're baking or cooking.
You know, if they pumped out scent of this chili, I'm sure people would like go in there and like, eat gobs and gobs of it.
Yeah, so look. Doesn't that look beautiful?
It does look beautiful.
So for safekeeping, I'm going to hide it in our microwave because Dahlia is a food thief. She will sneak up when we're not paying attention and nab it. So it says to add in the other 2 tablespoons of oil and then bring the pot to heat again. So let that sit there for 3 minutes, and then we're going to add in this.
So add in the veggies.
Yep, going to add in the veggies. Going to get a spoon to stir. Actually, I think I'll use that silicone spoon. It's sizzling. I'm going to go ahead and add it in. So we're going to saute the bell pepper and onion now. All right. And then we're going to saute this. Let it get soft. And that's going to be for 8 to 10 minutes. And the green bell peppers and onion are just about done. So now we're going to add in the garlic. And it says, how much garlic was it? 4 cloves of garlic. So
are you gonna use the handle then?
yeah, because it's smaller. So 4 teaspoons of minced garlic is about 4 cloves. So I'm going to put that in.
Now tell everybody what's the difference between a clove and a flower of garlic.
Oh, a clove is one little section of the bulb of garlic.
So a flower would be an entire bulb.
Right. So it picked up some of the seasoning from the beef being browned. Doesn't that look yummy?
That does look good.
And our next step is to add in the ground beef. And this is a big pack of beef I got at Costco the other night. And I divided it into smaller packs. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this in, and make sure you like and subscribe and give us your feedback and share the videos, and make sure you watch us so we can try new recipes. And again, this is the first time we've made this. Whoops. We've wanted to make this for a while, so you're going to try it with us. So now we're going to saute the beef, and then when the next step is about ready, we'll bring you back. Alright, and we're back, and the ground beef is cooked. And I used a paper towel on a pair of tongs to soak up some of the grease rather than trying to drain it. So now we add everything else except the pinto beans, because they would get too soft if they simmered for 3 hours. So let's go ahead and add our diced tomatoes. So it's a total of 28 ounces of diced tomatoes. So this is 2 smaller cans. And then 1.5 cups of water. And then 2 tomatoes diced. And then we have 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. And then we have all the seasonings. So, in the seasonings, we have a tablespoon of cumin, 1.5 tablespoons chili powder, 1 tablespoon onion powder, 3/4 teaspoon cayenne, and the 2 tablespoons of beef base. I mix that together in this dish so I can add it all in at once. So now we're going to let this simmer. It's a very, very thick chili. And then let's add back in the stew meat. Let me grab that out of the microwave. I didn't want our klepto canine to come steal it while we weren't watching.
Yeah, the dog ate almost an entire bag of sourdough bread.
So we're going to bring this up so it comes to a boil, and then we will set it down to simmer for 3 hours. So while this is simmering, you need to make sure you like and subscribe and share to your friends and give us your feedback. And we will bring you back when it's time to add in the pinto beans in about 3 hours. All right, and we're back, and our chili has sat, it simmered for 3 hours, and then we let it sit and cool off. So now
When did you put the pinto beans in?
I put it in about 10 minutes before the 3 hours was done.
Okay.
Because it just needed to come to temperature. So we're going to put some toppings on it. Some tomatoes. And some cheese. And some sour cream. Just do a little dollop. And now Tyler's going to taste it.
Yay, Tyler! He's been looking forward to this chili. That's what? Excellent. It's really good.
Yes.
He's gonna get another big spoonful.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. And make sure you like and subscribe and share to your friends. And join us again soon.
Thank you for watching Miss Cindy's Kitchen. To get more recipes like this one, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications when new videos are uploaded. Share it out to your friends, family, neighbors, and leave us a comment to let us know how this recipe worked for you. And don't forget to hit that like button. Again, thank you for watching Miss Cindy's Kitchen.